It's the Dunham Report with your host, Chester Dunham, and co-host, Wesley Crenshaw. Funding for this program was provided in part by the A. Philip Randolph Institute, ILA Local 1414, Geo Vista Credit Union.
I am Chester Dunham, and this is the Dunham Report. Marketplace of ideas, of information for labors, civil rights, and other issues of social justice. I am Dunham, and I'm the host of the show, and my co-host is Mr. Wesley Crenshaw, who is absent with us tonight, but we have a dynamic replacement. As you who had been keeping up with the show in the past, we have him on with us tonight, and that's none other than my former co-host, Mr. Grover Thornton. Mr. Thornton, how you doing tonight, sir?
Pretty well, thank you.
Pretty well.
Happy to be here tonight. It has been a long time since I've been on the program, after starting with you from the very inception of this program, which you have done an outstanding job for this community to inform them on issues that will be affecting them.
Well, we do have for you, the viewing audience, a lot of information tonight that we want to discuss, and we want to bring you up to date on a lot of things. We're going to be talking about just the election, the runoff that we had the other day in the election, and we're going to be talking about some city and county government, like I said, the election result and all of this. We'll be talking about a combination of things. Mr. Thornton, let me hold that. No, that's right here. We want to start out by talking about the state. As you know, the state legislative had just finished up their duties just recently. And I think in June, they probably nailed down everything. And we're going to discuss just a little bit of that, because in the future, we'll be talking about this a great deal. We will probably be bringing some of the representative on from time to time and talk about the information. We just want to talk about a couple of things here. And one of the main things that we want to talk about is the legislative had just got through, the Senate and the House had just got through doing their duties, and the governor had signed it all and put it into law, which is, the bill is HB 159, which talking about all the 159 counties throughout the state of Georgia. And one of the key things that I was telling Mr. Thornton just a few seconds ago that we want to talk about, and that is a bill here, which is the SB, which is the Senate bill, SB 403. And that bill talk about voting right, was another common theme or effort that they talked about just recently before they finish up just recently. And that bill failed because they didn't pass it because of certain things within that bill. One of the key things that we want to talk about that's in that particular bill is that the bill died at midnight before the legislation finished up. One of the key things was the Senate and the House could not come to terms on issues that they were talking about. The Senate bill, which is SB 363, was aimed at forcing the city of Atlanta to reduce their polling hours. And Mr. Thornton and I will talk about that, because that's a key thing that they couldn't get together on. The next thing was that if you read the information and look at it and say, well, one of the key things that they talk about was they wanted to, the state of Georgia is one state that they wanted to change, that they said the old voting machines that they have now. And they talk about this for a great deal and what they wanted to do. And they always, Mr. Thornton, sometimes they bring 2 and 3 bills or something together.
Mm-hmm.
They don't come but one issue. They try to tie them all in.
To one issue, yeah.
Right. And at first I said, why in the world, I read a little bit that why they wouldn't want to change the old machines to the newer type of machine. And that way they will, the electronic machine that they wanted to go to will talk about, will take care of the paper trail. In other words, these machines will then have paper along with the electronic, that you have a way to double check.
Right.
If you figure something was wrong or one of those type of things. So I said, well, why they couldn't get together on that? And I see later why they couldn't get together on it. If they had passed that particular bill, the city of Atlanta and surrounding places, and it will come to other counties later, but what will have happened when you get ready to vote, like a lot of time that we got on Sundays and other kind of thing, you can leave church and go to these places and you could be able to vote and all of this type of thing, that they fought so hard to get those laws put in place, that this particular Senate bill, which is 403, would have wiped that out. And so then the more I read, I can see then why, I guess, the House side, and they argue back and forth, so they couldn't get together on it. Of course, they'll be coming back talking about things, but I hope they get it all straightened out, because those are the things that we have to look at. Because what they try to do, they will try to delete your power everywhere they can get. They will
Absolutely
take from and all of this sort of stuff. Those kind of things you got to watch. You want to say something on that?
Yeah,
I know
let
you
me
do.
just say this.
Okay.
In a democracy, you should encourage everyone to vote. One of the main things, see, that's what black folk we got to understand. Like Dr. King said, give us the ballot. Then we'll put people in office who will be compassionate, people will be understanding, people who have a sense of caring. But many of these states, particularly the southern states, you know what happened to the voting rights bill. The Supreme Court wrecked it by taking out the pre inspection section of that bill.
Yeah, right.
And I can understand this. They have been trying to suppress black voting ever since we've been fighting for the right to vote. People would love to go. You should be encouraging people to participate in democracy, not coming up with these tactics of suppression and discouragement, to keep you from voting, moving the polling place. A lot of people already go to church, and sometimes they used to go after church to have the voting ability to go register to vote. You should be encouraging that type of thing. But on the contrary, they're doing everything just to disrupt and to disenfranchise you from voting. And I think that's deplorable in a democracy. You should be encouraging people to participate. You go to school and you read the books, all about the bar, all this in writing, all this in writing. But when it comes to reality, like you said about Atlanta, like you said about the polling places, they want to close them at a certain time and all that. Now, they know a lot of folks be working, particularly African American people, a lot of people, white people too. But when they work late hours, and they're trying to do everything to discourage them. Well, you could have a voting on Sundays. That's if you want people to participate in their democracy.
And in that bill, if you look a little further, they said that then Georgia will remain one of the 5 states, I guess, within the United States that will have the electronic device.
No paper trail.
Yeah, but we don't care until we get it straight. Because number one, just like you said a few minutes ago, in a democracy as the United States, and a lot of countries have laws and rules. They even got some countries that will cite people and fine them for not even going to vote.
Yeah.
and this sort of thing. So now we try to dilute
And discouraged.
and discourage them because of, it ain't but one thing, political power.
That's what it is.
That's all it is, political power.
Yeah, well, what?
Because inconvenient, and
Yes.
especially African American
Yes.
people, that's a fact.
That's
Inconvenient
of
them,
course. Make it
and this sort of
inconvenient
make it hard.
to
Now,
discourage.
that's right. And they better wake up. You all better wake up and wise up, and especially you youngsters who coming up, the importance of voting. That's the most important thing there is. That's the equalizer.
Absolutely.
That's the equalizer.
Well,
And
you
if
say
you
without-
go back into history, Mr. Thornton, 1866, about that time, is when they fought so hard. When we was the 1/5, and it was fought so hard under the Constitution Amendment, which is the 14th Amendment, 13th, 14th Amendment, all tied in with giving us that equal right so far as voting. Now, the thing about it is that we fought so hard, and after this happened, blacks saw the importance of voting,
Sure.
especially.
Look at Alabama, Mr. Dunham. Look at Alabama.
Well, before we get to Alabama, let's just say this. Let's go to the state of South Carolina. State of South Carolina was heavily more African American because of slavery.
Yeah.
Had settled in the state of South Carolina, in the Carolinas. So we had more of them, and they understood. And that's why in Washington and other places we had more elected officials going to the Congress and everything else, because they understood the importance of voting. And they took advantage, and that's what they did. Now, the thing about even the great Frederick Douglass was during that time and pushed this thing so hard. He was one of the leaders in pushing this thing about our voting right.
Yeah.
Now, females, whether you're white or black, females, they wasn't able to vote until
20 something, wasn't it?
no, it was 1919 or 1920, somewhere along in that.
Yeah.
Before, but it took all of that time
But he kept struggling. He kept pushing.
before they could, right, took all of that time. So even white women, and I mean, these are facts,
Oh, sure.
that your husbands and your brothers and all the rest of them didn't want to give you the equal opportunity to be equal to them.
And so
And that was the main thing. So we need to wise up and look at these kind of things and look at the past to move forward with the future.
yeah,
Go
that's
ahead.
what's so discouraging, because when you look at the word democracy,
Right.
that's why I have never been able to understand all the reading I have been doing throughout the years on history and things that happened during the Civil War, and why the people say, well, we doing all this for state rights, states' rights. Yeah, yes, states' rights, but the right for the states to do what? To expand slavery into the unsettled territories, the new
Okay.
territories. They want to expand slavery into that. So the word democracy is when everybody should be treated on the same level. Everybody should participate in the arena of existing laws equally and to share equally in the country. We did not become a citizen until 1868, passed of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, where it said all persons born or naturalized in the United States are therefore citizens of the states in which they reside. And even all the advances that was argued in the Supreme Court by Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, that was the premise of that argument, was the 14th Amendment, that no state should bar you or abridge your freedom of opportunity, advancement, and so forth. And to be treated like every citizen. I don't know why we had to fight so hard. And the ballot, that's why we got to get our young people to understand. It's the ballot. It's, I don't vote, it ain't gonna affect me. Yes, it does.
Sure it
Politicians don't bother you. Everything
Sure.
you live and exist has
right.
to do with politics.
Sure it does. Sure,
And
that's
whether
right.
it's Social Security, whether it's get food stamps if you're able, whether it's education, all of it has to do with politics.
Sure it does.
So don't say
Everything.
politics don't worry you.
That's right.
And that's what some people say. I certainly with some religious, but we don't fool with politics. We don't fool with politics. Yeah. Well, let's not you don't get a Social Security check when you entitled to it, and you see how important politics is. So, like President Johnson said one time in a speech, that politics affect every being of your existence in this country.
Sure it does.
And pass these laws. And I have never been able to understand all the reading I've done. All of you get your history books and all, they talk about democracy and this and that. And I have never been able to say, how can you have a democracy when you have apartheid built into it? How you have democracy when you got apartheid? That's two different systems.
Sure it is.
How can you have a democracy when you have apartheid? I could sit on the bus. I could do this. I could do that. But other folk come from every place else, get a right to vote.
Oh, yeah.
If your color was different.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's tragic.
Sure it is.
Very tragic.
And that's
do
why we
everything
got
they can to stop that right to vote.
And that's why we have to continue fighting and continue to fight.
Never come to the end.
That's right. Now they're talking.
Continue. We have been scuffling in this country as African Americans since 1619, when we arrived in this country against our will.
Yeah, right.
1619. Yeah. Some people say, "Oh, well, go back to the country where you come from." Well, I'll tell the white people, well, go back to the country where you come from.
That is correct.
The country where the Indians, you took the Indians and threw them on a reservation.
This country is a country of immigrants.
Another thing I can't understand, your friend and I were talking on the way home here. They say Columbus, we always heard that Columbus discovered America.
Man, please.
Yeah, but how
the
can
biggest
you
lie.
That's
the biggest lie ever been told.
Been inherited.
That's right.
I mean, inhabited.
No, plenty of people
even already here.
That's right, and other folks came here way before him.
Even them.
But even then,
just say discovered America.
No.
How can you discover something
that's
has already been inhabited?
That's right. That's right.
The Indians were here when they came.
Oh, definitely so.
So how you discover it? Discover something that had never been existed.
That's
before.
what I'm talking about.
So the voting is a problem, and you would think that everybody, whether Democrat, Republican, individual persons, and regardless of your party affiliation, a non-political involvement, everybody should have the right to vote. Everybody, and your vote should be counted.
And you know, right now, I register as a Democrat. I really, most time I'm an independent person, because, and the reason why, from way back, I followed my parents and what have you with Democrat, but I keep up with the political arena.
Yeah, you have to.
And how things work. So if you look at the way people vote who represent you, if you vote for an individual, whether he's a local person here, or whether he's state government, or whether he's national, or whatever, people need to understand that when you vote for somebody who represents you, if I'm asking you for your vote and I'm running for office, then I should be looking out for your interests and your welfare and all of these things when I make decisions. But that's not the way it is now with these conservative Republican Party. That's the only reason that gets me. Because if any individual, if I look at a person voting record, and whether you white, black, Hispanic, male, female, no matter what you are, if it's an issue that is right versus wrong,
exactly,
then I don't care who you are. If you're a Republican and you vote the right way, if you're a Democrat and you vote the wrong way, I'm supporting you over here. And that's the reason why I lean more towards Democrat, because at least they vote partially the right way, some of them. And then some again vote the right way, but then some again don't vote the right way at all.
When you look at over the legislations of the last 50, 60 years or more, these accomplishments, the Democrats have all been noticed to work for the common man. So I'm a Republican. But let's sit down and think about it. I'm not saying some of these Republicans didn't vote for these type of legislation, but where did your Social Security come from? Democrat President Roosevelt. The leadership of Medicare, President Truman first talked about that. Then who instituted and carried it out? Lyndon Johnson. You talk about health care, Social Security, voting rights, all these things, they were led by the Democratic Party.
But you know, I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's back up a little bit and talk a little bit.
I say you had a lot of good Democrats.
I know, but wait a minute.
You got some terrible people in the Democratic Party.
Okay. This show, when it comes on, I introduce labor because I'm involved with organized labor.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Labor is an organization that goes all out. No matter whether you're a union or non-union, go all out to make sure that the people get their fair share. Wages, all of these things you're talking about right now, that came from really organized labor. Roosevelt happened to be the president during that time, but the pressure from labor and stuff was on Roosevelt. The pressure again was on Roosevelt, especially dealing with blacks. Came from Randolph and other people dealing with black. But when it come to actually working and all of these kind of things, all of those things that was put into law came from the labor movement.
Sure.
I'll say it like that, the labor movement. And that's what made things change. Senator Wagner and certain bills and things was introduced and pushed through. That was written and done by labor. And he carried it on and these kind of things.
Absolutely.
And that was what's happened.
Because corporations didn't care nothing about you.
No.
Sweatshops, they work children.
No, still don't care about you.
Sweatshops. The labor caused us to have a work week, 40 hours a work week, benefits, all that type of stuff. So this man that started the labor movement in this country, Sammy Gumsters, he saw these young people in the 1800s working in the sweatshop. People being paid little or no, big business did not care.
He was one. He was in the head of the movement.
Yeah, he had the movement. Yeah.
But he had people with him.
Yes.
Labor organization is a group of people.
As you say, as time came along, a man like Philip A. Randolph took tremendous leadership in labor.
Oh, definitely so.
We had good labor unions.
The Pullman, he was not, and Randolph was not a Pullman porter.
Oh, yeah.
He was not. He didn't have no connection with labor or nothing else. But he was an organizer. He was a person who fought for what's right and what was wrong. And they saw this in Randolph, and that's why the Pullman porters went and drafted him and asked him would he take the responsibility on to be their leader. And eventually he did that. And the history is on after that, and the basic thing that he did, even on through the March on Washington in 1963. Sure. See, that if you follow the rich history of Randolph, then you would see.
The book I read, the idea really came from A. Philip Randolph to really put on this march.
You are correct. You are correct, all of these things. And I'll tell you another thing that people need to understand. If they look at the history of it, if I don't know whether you listened to his speech, but Lyndon Baines Johnson, with that Voting Rights Act,
65.
That speech that he did was a moving speech. I don't think I've heard no president.
No, never.
I've heard many of them, but have done a better speech than what Lyndon did, and that changed a lot of things for us. With democracy and everything else since Lyndon did that.
Remind me when I think of Lyndon Johnson. I read a whole book about him. He was never no Ku Klux Klan individual, but he was certainly anti-black.
Oh, definitely so.
No question about that.
Oh, yes.
In the times, but it sort of reminds me. I think about him, and I think about the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul, he was a persecutor. He killed people. He hated Christ. He was on the way, as you know, to punish the Jewish people, the Christians, and Christ challenged him on the road to Damascus. And yet he became the cornerstone of the Christian religion.
Oh, yes.
Apostle Paul. So when I think about Lyndon Johnson, he was not a really polished man as far as black folk to have the freedom, the same thing. Like I said, I can never understand apartheid mixed up in democracy.
Right.
They're like oil and water.
That's right.
You know, oil and water. But he was a man when the challenge came
That's right.
that stood up
That's right. That's right.
and then back down.
Because you could have had the wrong person there.
He got tired.
Wouldn't
The
have
first
get
when
nothing.
John Kennedy was assassinated, and you go back to the history, Andrew Johnson became the president after President Lincoln. And as August, another Johnson coming. And I remember the commentator said, well, this is going to be a different Johnson. And it was. Lyndon Johnson got tired of that foolishness, that ignorance. It's nothing but ignorance. That's all it is.
But another thing that we need to understand, especially young folks and folks who were doing that time, and then people who hadn't been born yet and this sort of thing, that march on Washington in '63, that march did a lot of different things, because in the first place they marched for jobs and freedom.
And when you got the right to vote.
And all of these things. So after that march is when they came back home and started getting things moving forward. Because number one, the first one was the Voting Rights Act in '64.
You had some places like Savannah, Alabama, majority of people in the counties, African American, couldn't even vote.
Oh, no.
In a democracy. Like I said over and over and over, I never back down saying this. How can you have a democracy mixed up with apartheid?
But, Mr. Thornton, you know that not only Alabama, that's why a lot of other states was cited for various things under the Voting Rights Act after they came up with laws and rules to govern people or to govern states. Because there's certain patch of places in a state that violated the Voting Rights Act.
Sure.
Georgia, South Carolina, I mean, places all over, you can name them.
Yes.
And even New York and different places, you take a patch of area, let's just say New York, and you take a patch, an area where Hispanic or a lot of people of color live in that area. So if they deny them certain rights and privilege, you might be looking at the state as a whole.
Sure.
But the patch of those states, that's when they filed those things that they had violated your rights and your privilege.
Exactly.
And those things happen a lot, just not Alabama and Georgia and a lot of places, but a lot of places.
In the north, yes.
That's right, a lot of places.
Yes.
And that's why you got to understand certain things and all of these kind of things to really move forward with on these things and what's going on. But you know what, you listening audience, that we wasn't going to get into this, and we would like to get into this another time and just have a special show to talk about some of this, because we are way from what we were supposed to be doing.
No, it all
so we're gonna, just like you say, it ties in together. Yeah, you're right, Mr.
about polling places.
Oh yeah, definitely
We're
so.
talking about voting.
Definitely so.
It's comprehensive. You know, it's extending more than just the polling place in Georgia.
Right.
It's universal.
Okay, let's talk about our recent election here.
Mm-hmm.
May 22nd, we had primary election throughout different places throughout the United States. They had a primary election. Another thing is that then right after that, we had the runoff. So we just got through with the runoff just the other day, which would have been on July, the 24th, right? So we just had that. And we had some key position, especially right here in the state of Georgia, is what we're going to be talking about, some of those things. And number one is that in the runoff, just recently, let's talk about on the statewide elections. And then we'll talk about locally here too.
Right.
But statewide, let's look at the situation. And another thing is that, remember, they're tricky, they do different things. In the primary just the other day, they had what we call nonpartisan.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you want to vote for Republican or Democrat, it doesn't make any difference. You could have done that, which they did in the primary. And in the runoff the other day, you had to switch over and let them know definitely whether you voting Republican or Democrat.
Right.
You couldn't do the nonpartisan in that. So now in this particular case, we had a situation where the governor's seat is up in November. The two front runners, there was 5 individual running. And so they had a runoff because the two front runner was Cagle, I think what his name is, and Kemp for governor.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Cagle, whatever his name is.
Yeah, they were the two highest vote getter. So they had this runoff. And just the other day in Chatham County alone, and then statewide, it came out the same way. In Chatham County election, the Cagle, he got 4,190, and Kemp got 7,547. That's that's in the runoff. So you know what you call him was leading the poll, popularity and stuff.
Yeah.
But Kemp beat him out. Now Kemp will then he's gonna be facing Tracy Abrams, who is the Democrat nominee. That she's the person, the front runner for the Democrat
And
Party.
still the people looking at.
So and we're gonna be coming back talking about that and a
Okay.
whole lot of things, because already this is how tricky you ain't seen nothing yet, but it's a whole lot of things gonna be coming down the pipe and gonna be happening. Now let's talk about lieutenant governor. That's the next group, which is I think it's Chafin
Yeah, somebody.
and Dunkins, and that one is, I don't know if they done counted because it's so close.
So close.
Have they decided yet or what?
No, not to my knowledge. They were recounting or something. But let me tell you what I hated about this man, Mr. Stracer.
Go ahead.
First thing he talked about, and people got to wake up here. First thing he said that I didn't dislike, and he was talking about the things he was going to do, this, that, and the other. And I'm going to fight Obamacare. So that sure brother, he care about nobody sick.
Right.
He care about nobody with health care.
Right. Yeah.
He going to fight Obamacare with everything I got. See, think that's going to draw a lot of people. What about a person laying up there sick? White, black, blue, or green?
That's right.
And the first thing, he gonna get to the Obamacare, and that was the best thing he ever got. I'm not saying
Obama somewhere doing this and that, and they still worried. These people are something.
But the thing I'm saying
Bunch of
is
hypocrites.
the health care. When the president, for the first time in history, have a national health care choice like England and other countries in the West. Now, he said for the very offset, this is not solid and concrete.
Definitely.
Give me good ideas, let's work to correct it.
Definitely.
So many millions and millions of people in America had no health care. Now that's what they think about. I'm going to fight Obamacare. I hope he lose.
Now let's talk about the next one is the Republican Secretary of State. That's the one that Kemp have. That's the position he got now, which you don't have it, but you got it right for a minute, because he running for governor.
Running for governor, yeah.
So therefore, we will see who will.
And he got the endorsement of Trump, and I hope it's a kiss of death personally.
And so you got two there, and that's kind of close to. Or who won that? Somebody have won that? I hadn't. Rather for the Secretary of State. That's another close one.
Yeah, I think the other guy that ran, what's the name? I think he won.
Bella.
Forget his name, but he got Secretary of State.
Is it the name on here? It should be on this thing here.
Let me see. Governor, board president. No, not on this. Your Secretary of State.
Huh?
Yeah, Raffenberger.
Okay, Brad. Okay, yeah, Brad Raffenberg. Okay,
And somebody named David
David
Niles, yeah.
Bells.
4,002.
Okay.
5,000, that guy Raffenberger.
Well, that's in Chatham County, but I don't know who won.
But I think he won.
not-
I think he won over
Okay.
state. I think he did.
Okay. Well, then that person will then run against John Barrow. 'Cause
Yeah,
John, the former,
yeah.
former Georgia's, former
Senator, representative.
Congressman. He got the nominee for the Democrat side, so
For the Secretary
they'll
of State.
be for Secretary of State.
Mhm.
Now let's talk about the state superintendent, and I see somebody that have your name.
Yeah, I had
That
that he came by church on Sunday.
he
And-
has the nominee for the Democrat Party.
Yeah, and he came to church. You were there that Sunday,
Yeah.
and I introduced him. And I said, I got a gentleman to introduce you. I know he's a good man because he has my name.
I heard that.
And we just laughed. But I think from he and I were just talking, and we have not really researched it. But he and I may be related. But the fact of the matter is, he was very articulate, and I talked with him and his ideas of what he wants to do. And I asked him to tell me some of the responsibilities of that particular job. And he was saying how he monitor things, and he knows what he's doing. And he was first African American that was elected as the national president of the PTA, Parent Teacher Association in America. He was a national president.
Well, you can tell he knows
He's
his way
very
around.
articulate,
He's
yes.
good because to win so far
Yes, sir, so far.
on the Democrat
And
side.
he had a
with
lot
the
of great
state.
ideas what he
So
wanted to do.
he got to
Yeah.
be his credentials and things are so
And he was
good.
telling me how
And
low Georgia was in some rating about the schools or something like that. And we were way down nationally.
the guy now is Richard Wood, so he'll be running against him
Yeah.
in the
November election.
November election. So now we can and we had this right here. This is kind of interesting. We had a little young guy here, a little friend of mine. He be in and out the house a lot of time, and up in Atlanta with Lester doing something. But Antoine Lang, he ran for and that's a good little start for the election board.
He go to our
the other day.
church.
Yeah.
He was in our church. He's
Yeah.
a nice fellow.
Yeah, he's a young guy and
Yeah.
everything else. That's a good start, a good
He took
push.
Mrs. Jones, who passed, Clifton Jones' wife, position on that board. That she
so
retired.
far,
Yeah.
he said they hadn't called him. I saw him the other day and let him know
But he was the
which
winner?
position he gonna have. You know, Miss Jones, I think she had one of the leading position. It's 2 or 3 board members, but then some is, their credentials are either their duties and responsibility have a title to it.
Well, I didn't
So
know
I don't
that.
think, he do, and so I don't know if they let him know yet what he got. I know so far he don't know. And he beat a good guy. He beat out Joe Stafford.
Oh, Stafford's fine
Yeah,
fellow.
right, very good. That's right.
Not because he's white, but he just had to be a nice
He-
fellow.
he's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
And now let's
Friend of
talk
mine.
about locally. Let's talk about the school board president.
No, Mr.
Before
Buck.
we leave that, let's talk about that a minute or two.
I know Mr. Buck. He was on our radio show one night. Remember?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I know him way
I
back.
think he's a fine gentleman.
He is a
I was a
right
friend
guy.
of the superintendent, and I was in his office one day going to discuss the problem, and Mr. Buck, I was on the way in, and Mr. Buck was coming out, and he and I spoke for a few minutes, and I said, let me ask you a question, Mr. Buck, a direct question. And I asked him, I said, are we in compliance with the with the Board of Education 54 decision of the Supreme Court? And he said, yes. And you got to look at it this way. The housing problems, that's the biggest thing. And everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but you can't be entitled to the facts. One of the worst things, in my judgment, you're entitled to your opinion. And I tell anybody that. One of the worst problems that happened when they stopped the busing, because children has to learn how to work together with other children. If you live way over here, I have no interaction with you. So there's always a separation there. Getting along, people learn one another's cultures and that being together, learning and understanding one another. But when you're all over here, 90% black schools, 90% white schools, very few mixed in the schools. But it's sort of like read the book when they were fighting to get blacks in the universities. And we take this time with the University of Texas. And we talked about the separate but equal. Before the Supreme Court knocked all that out, see, they were saying, this black guy go to the school, lunchroom, there was a wall right there. How ignorant they were with that foolishness. There was a wall right here. The black guy sitting over here. And then they said, well, it's separate but equal. He's in the same lunchroom, he's getting the same food. And I don't understand it, never will understand. Like I say, and I always maintain, I say over and over and over, how can you talk about this country, the land of the free, and all that bull talk, and democracy with apartheid?
Well, we are
Never
not.
understand it.
We are not in compliance.
No.
I mean,
because
we're making out and we're doing things, but
Right.
we're still not
but it's
in
going to be difficult
compliance.
to get it because the housing problem.
Well, that's true. I'm just saying.
That's the
but
main
yeah,
problem.
that's true.
We
It's
did deny
complicated,
it.
but we still are not in
Oh,
compliance.
I understand it. Not 100%.
Because
You'll never be.
see, number one is that people don't understand. That's why you got to read history and
Sure.
deal with all of this thing, like you said a few minutes ago. Well, separate but equal. Number one is that
Oh, we've said it never equal.
not the case dealing with Plessy versus Ferguson,
Yeah.
1896.
Yeah, that's what killed us.
That's
88.
that after the
Court decision, yeah.
but after after we got the voting rights, after the 13th, 14th Amendment, after all of those things were put in place and give us more rights and more privilege and this
But
and that.
women now,
So we was able to Reconstruction. We was able to do all the things that do everything that we was equal to whatever a white person got. We had the same things according to the law.
now listen, let me say this though.
Until
14th
then,
Amendment was 1885, 1865, 68.
yeah,
The separate equal was 1896.
yeah.
So that was what, about 30 something years later or something.
But
So
what I'm saying,
that was even went against the 14th Amendment. What I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah, but what-
1896 came many years after 1868.
That's why I brought this up. It came after because that was the situation with the what I just said a few minutes ago, but the amendment, not the amendment, but once we got it, give us the right and the privilege to do certain things because in the late 60s and early 70s and 80s that's 18 something I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
That we had all of these things. We had mixed school, we had everything until that case came up. Not Brown versus Board of Education. Plessy versus Ferguson, because that was the bus that was riding the train.
Yeah.
So that's when Plessy went to ride the train, they denied him his right that he was having all the time. So that went to the Supreme Court, and that's when they came up with that separate but equal. We'll get you there.
Which went on for over 80 years.
Right.
Terrible.
And remember now, when that happened, that didn't change until when? 1955. Brown versus the Board of
54.
Education, when that Supreme Court again
May
reversed
17.
that and changed it. That's right.
1954, May 17,
That all right. That what changed it.
But look at the suffering we had to do for 80 years.
That's what I'm talking about. So
80 years.
these are the things that we're talking about. And if you're not careful, this group that they got in there now, this little pig-ass guy they got in there right now on Schlesinger, would want to tamper with some of these cases.
Sure does.
That's what you got to look at, all of these kind of things. That's right. Reverse some of these things.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. That's why it's so dangerous and so important of things going on. That's why voting is so important.
Very important.
And we got to keep up with what's going on and educate people and let them know whether you're Republican or Democrat, whether you're white, black, male or female, we got to try to continue educating people where they would look at the viewpoint and do what's right. That's the only thing we're saying. Do the right thing.
I went to the doctor the other day, and these two young ladies were receptionist type jobs, and
all right.
I was talking to them about voting, and they said, "Yeah, we vote." And then I was telling them how things were. They could believe some of the things I said to them, and that comes back to what we're saying: education, reading, and knowing something. That's like Frederick Douglass said. You quoted him one time earlier today in this conversation, and Frederick Douglass said this: how can we make educated decisions for the future if we fail to understand our past? You got to understand what went on, and a lot of our young people just don't understand. They take things for granted. They don't think it's important to vote, and people gave their lives for the right to vote. I mean, white people.
Sure.
Look at that lady from Detroit, down in Selma, Alabama. Look at that white minister in Selma.
All of them people, that's right.
Beat to death.
Beat all of these kind of things. Let's,
he was beaten to death.
While we're talking about the state of Georgia, let's talk about the statewide elected office that people hold throughout the state of Georgia, where people would understand who's going to be voting about the future and what in these offices, and the individual put a name beside the individual. But we're going to just right now, I'm just tell you what office will be out there that we'll be voting for in November. And that is, we're going to be voting for governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, commissioner of agriculture, commissioner of insurance, state school superintendent, commissioner of labor, and public service commission. I think it's one or two of them. They call them where you live.
One name is Randolph?
Huh?
Or Ms. Randolph? Public Service Commission.
Well, I don't have a name on here, but just like you say,
I know her. She was at the meeting at the church.
Oh yeah, she's right. It's on. I just talking about. Yeah, I'm just talking about the position.
Yeah,
I wasn't talking about the name. But one key thing that I missed, Mr. Thornton, and we need to talk about it, and that is, and this is in the Atlanta area, and that is the two seats up there. And that is
what are they?
The 7th and the 6th and 7th district.
Well, what position are they?
It's one of them is I think her name is Bartow. She had won the Democrat. Just the other day, she won that, and she didn't have to be in a runoff because she outright in the primary, she won that. So she'll be running against the Republican person.
What position is it?
That's a Congress position.
Oh, okay.
That's the
congressman.
Yeah, for congressman. That's in the 7th district.
I understand, but I didn't know what district it was.
Yeah. Now in the
what position it was.
In the 6th district. This is another one. It's a heated one. In the 6th district, it's another one, and that's the one that they just had that election recently. That's when the Democrat guy, that's when Trump and all those other ones were sending people all over the place down there to help her out. She was the Secretary of State. Her name is, what her name is, Hanley or whatever. She was the person that won that that district. She took over the district for who that was, the guy who, what you call him, appointed him to, Trump appointed him, Price or somebody. Trump appointed him, and so they had to have a runoff for that 6th district. You remember this just happened last year sometime. That's the richest, that's the most expensive election in the history of the United States for a person who was running for a Congress seat.
Mm-hmm.
They spent over $50 million.
Really?
Over $50 million. So we have somebody on the Democrat slate is running on for that particular seat. And the people would know because the people up around Atlanta will be the ones who are voting for those positions. But they're already in place. And that will take care of all the runoff, according to what the race we talked about a few minutes ago, according to how that one come up, because I think they're going to have a runoff in one of them, because this guy done asked for a recount or something. So they'll have that. So they'll do that. So let's go back to Buck and in his election here, and that's why we have to make sure that whether we are local, state, or no matter what we are or what we're running for, school board was so important in this election the other day. It had to have been important because we had 5 individuals who were running for president of the school board. President of the school board is just a board member, but that's the person take the lead. That's the person will chair the meetings and do all these other things. That person have a little more influence, the chairperson, than anything. So they was interested in that. So Buck done served 2 terms, but he decided to rest and come back. So he was back.
The chamber wanted him bad to run.
Oh, well, definitely so. But see, that's why people have to understand this political process. I don't care whether you're white, black, male, female, or who you are. You need to be concerned about the children, the school system, and the people, not yourself. Now, in this race the other day, Morgan, she had in the primary 6,000 maybe 900 and some odd thousand votes. That's what she had. In the runoff the other day, what she had, the same thing. She might have had a few votes less in what she had in the primary. Now the other people who ran, this other lady, I forgot now her name, but anyway, she had about 5,000 or 6,000 votes or more. They should have be concerned. Those people who voted for her, they should have been concerned about this position here. I'm not saying anything against Buck, but they should have been concerned. Now they sit their tail, they didn't even participate in this election here. Some of the other ones who voted for the other people did not participate. 6,000 or 7,000 people did not came back out and vote in this particular school board race. But they'll be jumping up and down to a meeting or when things in the school ain't working right, raising hell and raising sand and all this kind of stuff. And that's what's happening here with us, and we're not paying attention. And we got people out there individually, running individually, and they shouldn't be that way. They shouldn't be that way at all. Now, and that's what happened in this local race the other day, and I thought I would have mentioned it because it needed to have been mentioned. Mm-hmm. See, and I don't know what you think about it.
Well, I know, Mr. Buck. I think he's going to do a good job. I think he's going to be a fair person. You feel like a fine, decent man.
Well, number one, I'm not saying that a fine person or not, but what's going to have to happen to Buck or anybody else. Not a fine person.
I think when I
But
say
what I'm
fine
saying,
person, I
that's
think-
true. But what I'm saying, people who got kids in the school system, other people who are concerned, need to be at those school board meetings, need to be there, not only for Buck, for all the other school board members, to make sure they vote the right way, make the right decision, and all those kind of things. Because if you sit on your butt, in which they do, because I go to a lot of school board meetings, and it's very few people there. So this is what I'm talking about. I see where the NAACP, their next meeting, they're going to have Dr. Levette will be she'll be the keynote speaker, talking about education and this and that. But now I'm going to see, because I'm going to be to that meeting, not if I'm be in town to that meeting, but I want to see that if some of these other folks are to those meetings and stuff like that, because that's important. They will run to, a few of them will run to this thing, but then in the election the other day, they were home somewhere, didn't participate. These are the type of things that need to be corrected, and we need to be on the top of these things. What you got to say about that?
Well, I agree with you. I think Mr. Buck, speaking as president of Thornton, he's going to work very closely with the superintendent, Dr. Levette. But I had no love for that other lady who was president. I said that one time on the show. I find out she was very unqualified in my position. She gonna say be against the superintendent when she should have said let us all lock arms together and make the school system a better
Who that?
place. The lady that was the predecessor.
Huh?
The lady who was former president of the school board. You remember I was on your show. And she made that statement about, she made a derogatory statement for, not racial, but a derogatory statement about Dr. Levette when she took the position. She came.
You're talking about the school board president?
Yeah. That lady, she was very unqualified.
Yeah, I mean.
I said that last time.
Well, I mean, I agree with you there.
She was very unqualified in my position, in my thinking, for that position. I still say it. But
we got a little more before we leave. A little more time because we can be leaving in a few minutes, I guess. But let's look at the situation where I see where our city manager may be leaving. I don't know yet, but we got some problem here within the city.
I thought he accepted a job. He didn't get that job?
Well, we don't know yet. Only thing I can see is what I saw in the newspaper. And the last thing I saw in the newspaper, I know he had an application up in Brownsville, Texas, where he was being considered up there with some more people. And the last one was in Florida. That's the last one, and I know that's where he hailed from in Florida and this and that. So the last thing I saw, and this was in the Tampa Bay Time, when they said this Pinell or some county up there that had this information out because they was looking for somebody, and Hernandez was one of the 4 individuals in the finalists.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing I read, it said that he would be talking along with 3 other individuals at a meeting with the they said next month. I don't know whether this month paper, and it could be this month. But anyway, talking about, in other words, he was one of the ones that being considered too. That particular job, don't know who's going to get it, but that particular job pays good money. It pays $275,000 a year, and that particular job oversees something like 2,000 employees, and they got a budget of $2.2 billion. Got a big budget. Now, I read a whole lot in Savannah Morning News about various individuals who was on our city council, trying, I guess some of them want to save face and doing here and there because of the citizen, the voters, talking about a whole lot of money that being spent, and especially the other day with all of that fire fee and all these different things. So the people raise.
But you know that's true.
But that's not settled because see, I don't want city council members to think that the voters or the people out here don't have common sense and thinking that because they take a pencil or something and say, well, we're not gonna at the present time, we're gonna waive this, we're gonna cancel that, we're not gonna charge you for this or that with that particular tax thing the other day. But they're coming right back at you again when they start dealing with the budget. And right back to the homeowners and this and that to get that money. And that's why voters and people got to stay on the top of them. Because if you don't, they'll turn right around and it rob Peter and pay Paul. I mean, one way or the other, and get it.
The first thing, my judgment is this, that a man can make any type of recommendations. He was not a dictator. He can't say we're going to do this. If he make the recommendation, it's the council that voted for that. That's my point.
Oh, definitely so.
I don't know how many voted.
Definitely so.
So
they're trying to save face.
The fault really can't be on that 5 feet. It really can't be on him.
No, it's not.
It's the ones that you sat down there representing us will let this happen to us. But if the pressure caused them to vacate that particular measure, but then they turn around and didn't they up the millage rate or something like that? One wash it out the other. So
if you have
paying what you,
if you have a position like the city manager has, and the council say, well, all right, we need to do this or we need to do that, they will call the city manager in and say, okay, this is a project that we got here that we need done, and so we want you to do it. We want you to get finance or what to do. We want it done. We need this, which they're talking about the fire thing the other day, but anything. Then it's up then for that manager and his staff to go and do the research and come up to say, all right, this is what, it's 2 or 3 formulas. This is what we can do this, we can do that, or we can do that. Now it's up to you, the board, to make the decision for this or that. I done tell you all you can do, and that's it.
Let me just say this. Ms. Tony and I are very good friends, and we talk occasionally. And she would say, oh, what's happening to Savannah?
Who that?
Ms. Tony, who I felt would give it a bad deal if I was a facility manager.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
you know that.
I talk with her from time to time. And when last time she and I were communicating, I told her that they were having a fury over this fire fee. And she said, I can understand that because she never had no problem with money for the fire department people. So what happened to all this? Well, I mean, where the breakdown down came? I said, I don't know. I said, all I know, the people raised a cane about it. Now they withdrew it, took the pressure of that, but then they turned around and up the millage rate or something. Did they offset that? I don't know. But like I still say, the man can make all kind of recommendations, but the final analysis, the council got to vote on it. So the buck really stops with them, not with him. He can go out and do the research because they request that he do that like you just asked him, as you just stated. If they ask him to do research, we want to do this, raise some revenue for the fire department. What about doing this? Can we get some other money? So he comes back, he say, oh, well, we can up to 5 feet for taxation on piece of property, so and so, so. And it's up to them to reject it or to accept it. So really the ball's really in their part because they're the one have to approve it.
Mr. Thornton, I appreciate you being here with me tonight on the Dunham Report.
Yeah, I enjoyed it first time in 5 years.
And
quite a few times.
we're going to be having you back because we ain't through with some stuff that we had on this thing here for tonight. So don't worry, we're going to be messing with you all the time, but coming back being a guest on the
Well,
show.
I'll be glad to come back.
All right, we appreciate that. And I'm quite sure the viewing audience enjoyed you tonight and enjoyed the show.
Being here.
And we hope that we enlighten you with some information that we try to share with you, and we
I'll
will
let me one
continue.
statement before I leave.
Okay, and we
And
will
that is this.
continue sharing information with you.
We got to
Mr.
get out
Thornton
and
said he
vote.
got one thing that you want to say before we leave.
Yeah, I want people to know how essential it is that they get out and vote.
Oh, definitely
'Cause
so.
we got an opportunity for the first time, along with a lot of good white citizens who would vote based on the qualification. I would not do press with that man on the thing with the shotguns and all that.
Well, we will be
I
coming
would-
back, and we definitely
I
will be
hope
talking about
that we
that.
get out and vote. We talked about that all night long tonight. Don't let anybody discourage us. Move the polling places, I'm going to find it anyway. And vote. In particular, what made President Obama so successful, because so many of the young people got out and vote. And that's what we need, for them to register and let's vote.
Well, we're going to do that, and we're going to make sure we're going to keep talking about this political process. We're going to let you know how important we're going to be talking about it. We're going to be talking about the governor's race.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about all those other races that we read out to you just a few minutes ago, and especially, especially, we got some other races that's so important. We got the first district. That's an important election in our area. So we're going to be talking about all of these things and talking about facts. I'd see the other day and on one of the shows pretty soon that we're going to be talking about the port and the harbor and this sort of thing. See, because you got to see a lot of people now trying to, things kind of looking good, jumping on the bandwagon. But I want to come back on the show and talk about the actual facts about what's happening in the port of Savannah, and jumping on a bandwagon because the dredging of this river and all these other kind of things, and the involvement of the port and all of these things. We're going to come back on and really talk facts. I'm sick and tired of picking up the newspaper and see a bunch of Johnny come late just got in off yesterday and talking about something don't know in the world what's going on, trying to brainwash people and this sort of stuff. No. We're going to talk facts about what's going on. And Mr. Thornton, we're going to have to go. My man just told me, yeah. So,
All right.
viewing audience, we will see you next week. Bye.